third Saturday of the month. So if you want to celebrate your birthday, if you just want to come hang out and have some fun with grown people having big fun, Sophisticated Saturdays is the only place to be. It's brought to you by yours truly, DJ Reds, and my boy, Mr. B. Sophisticated Saturdays, every third Saturday of the month, 6254 Memorial Drive is where the grown people go and have good, clean fun. Every third Saturday of the month, man. The way you make me feel, I'm just gonna have fun.
Mountains of Gold Records presents the 11th annual Gospel Celebration, I Saw the Light, featuring guest artist Claudio Clark.
Over there. Did you think of that mansion over there?
Second Chance.
My heart is hungry. My soul is dry. No.
Lee Priest Johnson.
Love God badly. Be praising daily.
Rosie B. Abigail Linton. Deli Thomas. Minister Morgie. Bernice Lamore. Yvonne Johnson. All backed by Doxology Band. Our MC will be Dr. Monica. Saturday, April the 20th, 2024. At 6 p.m. at Pentecostal Deliverance Assembly, located at 3032 River Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30034. Pre-sold tickets are $35, $40 at the door. Doors open at 5 p.m. and refreshments are on sale. For more information, 850-221-5440 or email us at doxologyband.mogproduction@gmail.com. You can't afford to miss this. See you there.
Greetings, family. Welcome to the Alkebulan Radio Show. This is our special segment called Healthy Eating and Living. And I am delighted and excited to welcome our special guest into the studio today. We have Brother Jonathan Carr here. And he has many titles. However, because of his humble, righteous walk, he has decided that he would just consider himself to be a steward of the land, a steward of wellness. And I will honor that by calling him a land and wellness steward. And as we always do and as we should do, we always give thanks and praises to the Almighty Creator first. So I'm just going to ground us with a prayer. So first and foremost, just give thanks and praises to the Almighty Creator for all that we have, all the blessings, all the favor, all the protection and covering that continues to go before us in all that we do. We give thanks for the guardian angels, the archangels, the ancestors, the cherubim, the seraphim, all of those light workers and guides that continue to guide our footsteps, whether we know it or not. We give thanks for a new day and for the opportunity for us to inherit all of what our ancestors envisioned for us. We pray that everyone that is listening over the airwaves be revitalized and rejuvenated and activated so that they may shine their light brightly into the world, that they may go forward and do good works and be encouraged to never get weary, but to know that good will always conquer evil, and for us to choose to stand in a righteous way. We give thanks for those that are in the studio as well, for all the love and support. We give thanks for our family and our friends and for all those who have come before us to make our way lighter and to lighting our burdens. We give thanks for mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, and all families that are healthy and connected. And we also pray for our youth so that they may inherit a world better than what we see today. Amen, Ashe, Namaste, Aho. And today is a special livocation to my mother. She goes by many names. My mother is an ancestor, and I'm playing a special song today as opposed to just doing our normal affirmations. But I would like to honor all those who have special relationships, whether it's your blood and or your spirit mothers that are out there, and also for the fathers, those who know how to nurture and plant good seeds. I honor my mother's legacy today. Bobby Diane, Catherine Parrish, Bobby Teller Foster, also known as Nzinga. I honor you as my ancestor. This is India Ari, Sacred Space. For me, my mother's love is like God's love, and sacred space is what the Creator gives us. Ashe.
You are where I go to hide when the wind starts to blow, when the lightning starts to strike, when the thunder starts to roll, when this life becomes a fight. You are where I put my gloves down when I'm running out of time. You are where I go to slow down. You are my favorite place. You are my sacred space. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Where I go to be moved, where I go to be still. Your love makes me new. In your presence I heal. You are my favorite place. You are my sacred space. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. No walls, no war, no cause, no weapons formed, no law. What for? You are where I go to hide I go to feel, to remember what is real. Ooh, you are my favorite place. You are my sacred space. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
All right, family. That is a special song for me. And I also want to acknowledge that, when we talk about the Creator, the closest thing that, we know to God is a loving parent. So I want to shout out Noni. I know that your mom has recently transitioned, and I'm giving condolences and love to your family as well. And to Omi Dayo, who has always held space in your journey and your relationship as a mother and honoring the spirit of your mom. And y'all always hold space for me. So I want to shout out to my two sisters who have supported me from day one with this radio show, and for all the love that you all give me, not just here, but in every area of my life. Ashe. And so, Brother Jonathan Carr.
Yep.
We have a king in the house. We have a segment called King's Corner, actually.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to you and Brother Source coming for that. I want to shout out Brother Source, who connected me with you, and Omi Dayo, who connected me with Brother Source.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful for how Spirit works, that it's all a connection. We are all one. We are all connected.
Continuum.
Yes. Sometimes we don't acknowledge it, and it just shows up as a reminder. And so I'm so excited about today's show, because healthy eating and living is a large umbrella that encompasses a lot.
Yep.
Our mindset, what we eat, how we speak, the music we listen to, the images that, we partake of, the company that we keep. It's not just about food. So I am interested in you. Initially, I learned that you were a farmer, and, the cleanliness of the food, the way that it tastes.
Yeah.
I've always had a passion for supporting local farmers and us growing our own food, because I recognize that one of the biggest ways that you control a people is through their food,
Yes.
the education, and the health care.
Yep.
And so you also told me that you have a great, rich past, a great rich history of things that you brought to the table prior to going into the agriculture field.
Yes.
So one of the things I like you to do is to really introduce yourself. And a lot of times it's not always something we like to do, like, oh, tell me about yourself. But if you could please tell the listening audience, who is Jonathan Carr, and how you came to be in the place that you are on your journey today?
In short, I'll try to keep it very short.
Don't. We have an hour.
I'm born and raised in South Florida. My
Okay.
one side of my family is from South Georgia. The other side is from Okeechobee, Florida, or Pioche, or the Muck, as we say. But my background is quite complex, because I was always a slacker. I didn't really, school bored me, and I didn't really plan on going to college. But my mother said I had to go to college. Single black strong mother made me go to college.
Shout out to mommy.
And I went
All
to
of
school.
them.
Yeah, and it was 6 of us. So I'm one of 6, 3 boys, 3 girls.
All
I like the Brady Bunch. But I got forced to go to college to a certain extent. I went to school for osteopathic medicine because
So, osteopathic has to do with the bones, or?
No, it's more of a specialty. It's
Okay.
like a fashion of organic medicine, alternative medicine. So I was gonna go for, I think, like an OBGYN, but with a specialty in osteopathic medicine, so I could bring holistic medicine to that dynamic. but I got caught up in the realm of psychology and science, and I swung into science and psychology. So I have a bachelor's in psychology and science and family relations. Went to graduate school and flunked out dating my wife on and off from Vancouver, Canada. And by default, I stopped my degree in science and went for my MBA in finance because I was always doing business. But in the meantime, I was being a young black man working in science. They always put me in complex situations. So I worked at a psychosocial rehab with clinically unstable, substance abuse, challenged people in the state of Florida. And then when I moved to Canada, I worked for the government, the Children and Family Services, working, doing therapy with families and youth and so forth. So always amongst those that are challenged medically, either behaviorally or medically. So to back up a little bit, South Florida, born and raised, met my wife in graduate school, moved to Vancouver, Canada, lived there for about 8 years.
Sounds like a beautiful love story. Shout out to your beautiful wife.
It's a good story. It's a good story, but I was growing the entire time, and it's a beautiful story. But a lot of it's like a river is moving, but it's a lot of things keeping it moving, right? And we started having children, and I became familiar with the medical system on the first level.
The Canadian healthcare system.
Yeah, the Canadian healthcare
system. Which is considered much better than America, the education and the healthcare.
Yeah, as someone that, I always get asked this question, which one is better, drive by. Canada's system is perfectly suited for America, where
interesting.
They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the infrastructure for the people they serve. So, for example, my wife was pregnant. They didn't have a hospital available in Lower Mainland, so we took a helicopter to Washington.
Wow.
And that happens quite a bit.
And you're talking about Washington State.
Yeah, well, Nanaimo, which is an island. It's Washington State, but it's an island in Washington. And I was upset. I became the spoiled American. I was like, this would never happen. This is ridiculous. And my wife didn't have the baby, so we had to take a ferry back home. But the Canada system is not, in short, is not better than America's system. America's system is based in capitalism, where you kind of get what you pay for and you get what you know. So what you know trumps all that you can pay for.
Interesting.
And you can take your knowledge all over the world. So no matter where you go, if you know what you know, you're good. So had some children in Vancouver, Canada, did dual citizen thing. I'm a dual citizen. All 5 of my children are dual citizen.
I like that.
After about 8 years of working for the Ministry of Children and Family, doing therapy, and family therapy and youth therapy and supervised visits for those parents that needed them, I moved back to Florida thinking that I was going to, return to a warm climate. And I did start working in long-term care for the state of Florida, dealing with individuals that are terminally ill, degenerative disease, spine disorders, basically everyone that is a high-cost readmitting hospital person. I worked with the insurance provider, a large insurance provider down there, same one up here. But that gave me that was another illustration of how I got a chance to be in the hospital and be the advocate for the client to get out of the hospital. In insurance and in the medical field, they call us the dark side. We're the ones that show up when we question what we pay for. So when we show up in the hospital, I'm your best advocate because I don't want to pay for anything that you don't medically need. If you don't medically need it, I'm pulling your charts and you coming home. And so I did that. And all the while, my family is from farming. We all farm, but we farm subsistently. So a lot of people don't know the difference between subsistence and sustainable. Subsistence is like what melanated people do and what people do all over the world.
And our ancestors, that's how we actually survive,
Yep.
like the sharecroppers.
Yep.
After we were so-called freed from being enslaved.
And deeper than that is we had community to barter with the community. So sustainable farming is more commercial. My
Okay.
family all farm, but they wouldn't call themselves farmers because they didn't deal with the government in the same way that a commercial farmer does. They knew Mr. Moot, and they knew he had watermelon, and my
Right.
grandfather
That's how my
had pigs, and we
grandparents
were
were.
buying.
Yup.
So most of us that come into this space, we kind of get lost in the commercial, but it's really the communal that we always. And then the communal was so big, it pushed. Ironically, the United States and the governments pushed us into commercial because we had a closed network of people working. We had a completely closed market. And so subsistence farming is what I've always done. So everywhere I moved, whether it be in Canada, I always had food and what I eat in the backyard. I would always go to the market with the excess. I would always find someone that knew something about something I didn't and then leverage that. And when I came to Florida, I did the same thing. When I came back home, except this time the iguanas had gotten, the iguanas in Florida, you know, I'm born and raised in Florida, so I remember when the iguanas were just a pet before everybody let them out. The iguanas had gotten so bad, they were eating my lettuce, eating all my everything in the back and getting stuck in the yard. So I moved to Georgia in an attempt to be around my people and to grow and serve the people, and specifically to reduce the rate of hospitalizations through how we eat and live.
I love that.
You know, so that's what-
Reducing hospitalization through how we eat and live. And a lot of times people don't connect that.
yes.
Like the topic today is, you know, a lot of people say health is your wealth. And it's kind of like an overused adage.
It is.
You know, but what does that really mean? Like, do we have an actual plan that's sustainable to make that happen? And I'm hearing one of the keys is recognizing the connection between how we're eating and living, like having an active lifestyle. Because most of the elders that I know who are doing very well, they eat well and they are active, they are moving.
Yep.
And I think it's said between like 25 to 45% of most seniors are not moving
Yep.
and they're not active, but it also starts with our mindset.
Yep.
So I admire the fact that you have this like social responsibility beyond yourself.
Yeah.
Because I believe that that's the key to a lot of the social ills is that it's bigger than us.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing you get when you work in insurance and the healthcare industry, there's no advocate for the high risk admitter, and the high risk admitter readmit, the person that, you know, readmission is within 30 days. So there's a demographic, us, for lack of a better measure, people of color, women are high cost readmitters, but they have no advocate. So, and it's not in the hospital's interest to give them knowledge that reduces their claims. And so,
Right.
when as you take it on, you it has to be a space for people to have the knowledge, and you have to do it. So, I'm ambitious enough and silly enough to think I can do it, and
And powerful enough to get it done.
but that's so there is a, in short, there are tools, there are fundamental things that you can recognize where you need help. If you are going to and from the hospital, first off, and I'm going to pivot almost right to the quick. The primary within the hospital industry, there's a couple tools one must know. The primary care doctor is they're your biggest advocate. So if you must have a relationship with your primary care doctor, and this could be now you should have you can have a healer or someone that knows what we know.
Like a team.
You should definitely have a team, but the primary care doctor is the one that argues the hospital whenever you're admitted. The primary care doctor will tell you Jonathan needs an individualized treatment plan because he can't sit still, and it's not ADHD. It's an endocrine disturber. He needs to meet with the endocrinologist because his thyroid is overactive.
Okay.
Primary care doctor is they're the gatekeeper. Once you get that, another piece is always, and this is the wealth piece to a certain extent, always understand the hospitals are for emergency only. They're not they're not drop-ins, and we kind of drop in. I've been going to, I'm from Florida, and my mom's a hard-working woman, so I've been going to the hospital. If anything happened to me, she's taking me to the hospital, but it's only for emergencies. You should be calling your primary care doctor. Back in the day, we would call grandma or granddaddy or some elder that was familiar enough to understand what was going on.
That's true.
And so once you know you got the primary care doctor, the hospitals for emergencies, then you have to generally know how to spot an ailment in the body. So you can spot that by knowing your body, but you can also spot it by what the doctor says. So on the layman term, you should know what your A1C is if you're going to the doctor.
That's right.
And
for diabetes.
Yes, and if you're I don't know how to say it, but if you're a person of color, and what I mean by that is if you are melanated or not, but just know that when you're anything if you're pre-diabetic, if you weren't melanated, you would be probably grossly diabetic. So because your threshold for getting sick is so high, so once you get sick, you've done a lot of stuff to get sick because you almost can't sick. You have something that can correct itself. So for example, in insurance, we know if I take your right leg, I'm taking your left leg. So you're going to get disability off top as soon as we cut the right leg, because we know the left leg is coming, because we know you're not going to change your habits, especially if you're a person of color, because you're using your same energy that liberates you to keep your habit alive. So it's a very interesting thing with this particular demographic, and this is the high-risk demographic. The probability of getting readmitted as a black woman or black man. Black men are, we're really out of there. Like it's not too many of us around in the medical field. It's more so black women. They're the high-cost client. It's so high. And then you have children, and so you're gonna bring your children to me. You're not gonna see the endocrinologist, and these specialists sit to help you. The hospital has specialists that are there to help you, but again, the primary care doctor can only give you the prescription to the specialist. If you go to the emergency room, their incentive to claim you out. They're gonna get claims. And then as you get older, you're going to graduate directly to the nursing home, because it's a lot of relationships within these dynamics.
Wow. So what came up for me is the pipeline from the schools to the prisons.
Yeah.
And now
hospitals should be on the back of that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the pipeline from the hospitals to the nursing homes.
Yeah. Business-wise, it's it's great. But from insurance, we pay. So we don't like it. So insurance will literally pay you to stay healthy, which they don't have any incentive in except for money. So they're greedy, just like the hospital's greedy, but at least their incentive can serve you if you don't want to go to the hospital.
So how does that work? Because in my mindset, I do feel like the society is kind of built on people being sick. They make more money off of us being sick than healthy. Where like when I was in middle school, shout out to my 6th grade teacher, Mr. King, who I don't know if he's an ancestor or not, but he used to live in Japan. He would tell us that the doctor gets paid when you're well. They don't get paid when you're sick, because that means they're not doing their job.
That's probably
that really helped to change me, like in my role in being a conscious eater. I started when I was like 12 or 13 because I was able to pay attention, and also my parents, my mother and my grandmother was into herbs. It's like a lineage thing.
Yeah.
But I was able to start paying attention. Like there's so many fast food restaurants and liquor stores in the black community. But when you go into other communities, they're walking communities. You can dine outside. And
well, now here's the interesting thing. the difference between those communities are often one community is more agrarian than the other. So a city dynamic is built off consuming and monetizing every aspect of those that frequent it. But agrarian communities, where most, we graduate from college, you want to be where it's popping. If I graduate from FAM, I want to
with the best music. I
want
met some good folks from FAM.
Yeah, now let's be clear. I didn't go to FAM. I just know everybody that went to FAM. I went to Nova Southeast, and I went to a very square school. But my point is, we generally want to go to the city, and the city has to pay for their expenses. So when you go to beautiful agrarian communities, the agrarian actually generally knows. I know source over here that deals with energy. When you go to Nova Scotia, they don't have the hospital infrastructure to let you have babies when you want to. So they go out there and train you how to babies at home. So it's a catch, you know what I mean? So it's a very interesting thing. So
it's interesting.
Yeah,
and we're talking about Nova Scotia because you were talking about how you had to fly to like a hospital.
No, that was in Vancouver, but in Canada, by and large, they like the deliver for a woman. The delivery experience in Canada is amazing. They will everything we pay for here, tub, ball, you can walk to the refrigerator, get yourself something to eat. But it's because they're a dying people. They're a small group. It just crossed 41 million. It was more people in California than the entire country of Canada. So
say that one more time. The more people in California.
There's more people in California than it is the country of Canada. Canada just passed 41 million.
So I am aware that geographically that Canada, although it is a large area of land, a massive area, that there's a high concentration, only small areas of Canada where people live. It's actually habitable.
Yes. Well, yeah, but the agrarian people, they don't have access to hospitals and so forth, similar to how in Georgia used to be, and Florida used to be, and these are when you were growing your own food, and then you realize, the sheep gives birth, and you learn how to give birth, and and by default you become a steward of the healthcare of your family or your tribe or your group or whatever.
I have a lot of respect for midwives. I had a home birth.
Yeah.
But I knew when I was a youth that I wanted to have my children at home because I wanted the people who touch my children, the first hands to touch them, to be loving hands.
Mm-hmm. That's important.
Which was my mother and my husband at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, that's rare.
So I'm really amazed by the mother of invention is necessity. They say necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. So I never made the connection until this moment that a lot of the things that we have access to, Canada doesn't have. But I'm thinking about, I know a family who, it was a man here in Georgia. He married a woman in Canada, but she came here to have the baby.
Yeah, most Canadians do. And when you're in Canada, you have double insurance. So you have the MSP, you have the government insurance, and then when you work for your employer, they give you a private insurance. So you'll generally have MSP and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then if me and you are married, we're 10% covered. So you're 100% covered, but they don't have the infrastructure, and all their doctors train here and so forth. But the thing is, America is how do you say this? America still has places where, my grandfather, all my aunts were born like your children were born. They knew a lady that gave birth to everyone.
Yes, we love our midwives and doulas.
But this isn't years ago. But in Canada, these are a long time ago. And so once the city becomes in place, once the agrarian piece, this is why the land is important. Once the agrarian piece is done, you put a hospital on top of the farm or on the land space. And now you don't need your placenta. Let me have it.
Yes, we do.
You don't. Oh my God!
Probably studying
no, they're studying.
Not probably, they are.
Yeah, that nothing goes to waste in the medical industry.
We bury placentas, and they make tea from it and everything.
Nothing go, and it shouldn't if you are in need of it. The black woman is, in this example, incomparable in what we throw away. Its utility is priceless, and so once you put that hospital right over it, now we have access to what would frequent the hospital. What would frequent the farm, and we just take all of it, and that's just how that's business. It's not I don't have any offense to that because I own land and I have home births and I have my primary care doctor, but I have my source, I have my own knowledge, and I have I intentionally build a community, almost like a treatment plan. We saying I build a treatment or a care plan around me where I will go to the hospital if it serves me. Right. The hospital is not the boogeyman, but if it serves me, and it must serve me, because if it doesn't serve me, I serve it.
So I have a lot of respect for what you're saying, and shout out to Source who's in the studio, because we also call Spirit Source. So I love that he walks with that name, because I do recognize the God within all of us. But what's coming up for me is that I've always felt like blood work is really important. I know that Western meets Eastern medicine is important, or energy medicine. There's ancient practices that still work and are applicable, that work for thousands of years. But there is a reason why we have Western medicine too.
Yes.
And oftentimes, even when people look at things from a cultural perspective, as a group of people, I may not necessarily want to deal with colonizers, but I do know some individuals who may come from that ancestry who their spirit is still more like-minded to me. And so, again, it's about perspective, that we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Exactly.
That there's a reason why we have been inspired, and we're still on the front line as the leading, we were the first physicians. We are the best scientists, the best doctors. So how do we create these kind of mindsets around a treatment plan where you only go to the hospital if you have broken bones, if you have some kind of emergency like heart attack, stroke, you call the ambulance, because a lot of places don't even have an ambulance. I've heard of people like waiting around for 911. They have to jump in the car and hurry up and get the person to the hospital. So it's like when there's an emergency, you go to the hospital, but is there a place for urgent care? Or, an ounce of cure is worth what do they say? A pound of prevention is worth an ounce of cure.
Yeah.
What does that look like for us as a people? Do you tell us how you walk this walk so people can pull from it? Because I want it too. Because I've had some hiccups in my life around healthcare as a mom.
I would say, as I previously said, the man is almost a non-player. The black man is almost a non-player in the healthcare industry. We're pretty much.
I thought that was an interesting thing.
We're pretty much in prison, or
don't go to the doctor.
Well, it ain't enough of we in prison and university. We are trying to build something and we're occupied. But I would say the best thing, in my experience, a man, we're stubborn. A man in the right direction is very stubborn. They're the ones that are. It's like we're the old grandma. Don't bring my baby over there, and we will try it. But with knowledge, a man can kind of try. He'll try. And he'll, in my case, it just, I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. If you tell me eating well is a big play in health management, I want to own the land. If you're telling me, if I don't know something, I'm going to ask a question. And if somebody knows it and I don't know it, I'm going to pay them or try to put myself in position to barter the information that I need.
Right.
So in my situation, I rebel. As we say in the plant world, I'm the bitter. Once you tell me the sweet lulls me, I'll take the hit for the bitter, and I'll question them. The best thing you can do is question. So if a mother is on her back, and the anesthesiologist is saying, "Oh, we really think you should be prepped for a C-section. You've been laboring for 20 hours, and so forth." She can question, but when she questions, the whole room cowers and begins to argue her question.
Right.
They begin to say, I've been here for 24 hours. Don't you think we should just help you out? You're in enough pain.
And the
don't
doctor's like, I'm ready to get
you?
off
Don't
shift.
You, yeah, don't you?
I've heard of stories like that happening.
My doctors, I've had some babies in the hospital. My doctor has told she had to, and I've questioned that. And for the man in the corner, remember, it's not that many men beside these women either, beside our women and women in general. When I questioned the doctor, I'm in Boca. I'm in one of the best hospitals in South Florida. It was one of the hardest things I had to do because I had to stand up and be, the woman strong, but when she's experiencing that levity, she has to have an advocate. Yes. And I had to stand up and say, no, you got to give my baby time.
That's right.
You got to give her time. Well, the umbilical cord is going to be, I hear what you're saying, but that baby ain't in no rush, and my wife ain't in no rush. And she looked at me like I had kicked her in the face or something.
So grateful that you did that.
I mean, but my point is you have to, so my tool is to rebel and to build, understand economics. It's not a surprise we have hospitals with high readmission rates for our demographic with Foot Lockers and liquor stores all in the same area. We are a powerful people. So when the energy can be used, it's just interest. It's just, debt is collected off interest. Our interest is collected off the debt. So if I can get you in debt to me, I'm going to collect the interest. If I can get you entangled in the hospital, if you come into the hospital, I'm going to give you my social worker.
Well profit off
and
you the most.
My social worker going to refer you to the nursing home, and we're going to drag your Medicare out past the 100-day, 80-day threshold, and we're going to make you a resident. And now your family got to go to court to get you out this nursing home. And you're not doing it. You ain't got the money to do it. You're different because you in the hospital too. It costs nothing to have a baby, but it costs a lot to have a C-section.
Yes, and I did a lot of research on that. It's been many moons ago since I had my youth, but I remember doing research on how C-sections are like one of, not just C-sections, it was two things, but C-section was one of them. In America, the C-section rate is just astronomically way too high. Yeah. And it's because they get more money off of C-sections. And I remember them like, what date do you want to have your baby? But I grew up with, knowing that even the way that the stars align has a lot to do with how we're born. So I'm like, the Creator wants his child to be born at a certain time, and then they playing God.
But you can't say that in the hospital. Well, everything you just said gonna get you jammed up.
That's why I had a home birth.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were trying to give me a date.
Yeah, because
you gonna have this baby on this date.
Yeah, you were able to pull it.
Yes.
But I mean, imagine being 17. I don't know whenever you had the child, but imagine being 15. My mom was married at 15, so 17 nowadays is totally different. But imagine being a young woman, and I mean the stories are crazy. We know so many. I used to work with a lot of some of my clients, and when I came to Georgia, I didn't know a lot of my friends that had a C-section did not meet with the anesthesiologist and him pinpoint where the injection would be for the epidural. And it made sense to me because in Florida, we had so many clients that were paralyzed from missing the spot.
Whoa.
And so when my friend said, I said, how can an anesthesiologist even suggest the epidural when and some will say, I can feel it. I can feel which disc and da-da-da. But you're supposed, it's within the care. They're supposed to locate it, put the sticker there, and literally if you choose to have a C-section, any anesthesiologist on rotation should know exactly where that needle needs to go. It's not
in advance, not at
in
the
advance.
time
We're
of
talking
need.
about second, early third trimester. But now if insurance covers that, like in Canada, they'll do it. But in America, where insurance is kind of private, you got to pay to play. You got to pay. You got to pay for this knowledge because they not doing it off top. But they'll give you a C-section if you show up. So you have to put yourself in position to rebel. So economics, but the notion of asking why. This is my body. You can't get the placenta generally without you know, if I do the C-section, I got everything. But the other piece is a lot of women when they have their first cramp, they go to the hospital and they say we gotta do an X-ray to see where the baby at. Your water gonna break and we not gonna discharge you until this baby comes. So now you're gonna tell everybody you was in labor for 25 hours, but it was induced.
Yes.
At the
For the X-ray.
Yeah. So
That's deep.
Again, working from the insurance side, we have privy to this because we get the claims. And so once you see it all, I just literally am like, yo, it seems like you got to grow your own, raise your own, know the system,
Gotta know
have
the
a community, have a care plan, and
Some good gems.
and you have to, and you have to be able to accept if you're a single woman, and you know most of my single girlfriends have female friends. I used to tell my wife, she ain't like this at first, but she was saying that she have medicine if she have a baby, or I'll do medicine if I need it, blah 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 blah. I said, Mila, she said, the pain, you don't know what the pain is like to be, you ain't never. I said, Mila, it's your pain. You can't go in no hospital saying you got pain. They got a pill for that. They got treatment for that. So I would encourage the friend or whoever's there to not fold or don't encourage the woman's pain as if it's something foreign. Your body is perfectly suited for what it does. I remember on our second child, my wife gives birth breech every other child.
Okay.
So every other
I had
we
a
got
breech
two.
birth too.
And what seems like, and
Yeah, one
her
of my
aunt said,
twins were breech.
all the women in the family give birth breech. So I don't know if it's a melanated thing, but anyway, the doctor said they were prepping her for emergency C-section because she was 9.5 centimeters dilated. And the doctor said, she said, we have to do emergency C-section because the feet are there. But she said, I have to tell you that for the hospital side. She said, but women have been giving breech since the beginning of time. You're a little early, the baby's smaller. I'm confident your body can handle this and can do it. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Oh, I love that because I was told that I would automatically have to have a C-section because I had a breech baby.
For sure. That's what my wife was told.
One of the midwives told me that they don't even teach the doctors how to deliver breech babies anymore because you get more money with a C-section. So I felt safer with midwives.
Well, there's that, and I think it's less than 2% of women that have breech because, my theory is they don't make it to term. You have to understand, you have to be able to make it to term because sometimes, if you go early, whatever. But when my wife gave birth to the breech, so many doctors were in the hospital in the room to see the breech. Right. But the hardest thing about the breech is the doctor cannot touch the child. They can't pull.
Because they could lose their practice or their license or something, or why?
No. It's because depending on what breech, we're assuming 2 feet at the bottom, right? Which isn't too complicated as opposed to 1 foot and 1 foot over there or whatever. It's different breeches, but 2 feet at the bottom. When the feet come, you can't pull. Because you can really, some doctors might try to use tongs, but the breech ain't like that. When the head come, the head's the widest circumference. It's just as wide as the shoulder. Everything gonna come after. The breech moves, so you have to let the baby come out at the cadence of how it's gonna come out. You can guide a little bit, but you can't, and that's the hardest part. My doctor, the last breech we had a couple years ago here in Georgia, she said while delivering, she said, the doctor said the hardest part is just you can't touch. She said, as a doctor, I just want to.
Instincts.
Yeah, and you have to, and they were like, oh my God, the feet are, and you literally are watching the feet. And so, she didn't want to do it, but she was the only doctor that said she would try. She said, I haven't done one in 25 years. And she did it. So, but it wouldn't come without advocacy. And that's the piece.
What I'm hearing.
You must remember that you have a choice, and you have to, sounds crazy, but you have to accept death. You really have to just say, this baby gonna come. Because you have a C-section, they tell you that's the conversation they have anyway.
Right, they try to scare you.
You could, if you could die during, that's a cesarean section is a big surgery and you can die. But so is birth. So once a woman, you've had children, so once you get to, when a woman is delivering, in my experience, watching, being the witness, the woman gets to a plateau. She says, "Okay, all right, all right,
It's enough.
all right, I'm done." And the body goes in this, and everything you said and planned for doesn't make a difference. She goes into her gear, so to speak, and she does whatever needs to be done. And but yeah, so I would say have your own care plan of everybody that you need around you, and live intentional. I know grandmothers and elders ain't in the home, but
Yeah, that's
you
something
gotta
that
try
we
it.
really have to find a way to return to. I
'cause
have
those
a
are the
major
biggest. Those were the
concern
first
about
case
that.
managers. Those were the ones that say,
wisdom
"Baby,
keepers, the knowledge keepers.
Yeah, the librarians, the griots.
Say when an elder passes, a whole library.
Yeah, they pull it. They
is
stubborn enough.
burnt
They got
down and
nothing to
destroyed.
lose. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They got nothing to lose. They the only one in the family that ain't working. That say, "No, this is my baby," and they have jurisdiction of that child. That woman that's delivering. They say, "No, well, this is my baby. Y'all can do what y'all want, but this is my baby, giving birth to this baby."
Yeah, and we need that again. We need like a call to action around making sure that we have this circle of connection. Like, may this circle not be broken. We have our seniors in a whole nother place. Like during a pandemic, that really bothered me. Like this attack on the seniors, and you can't be around the elders. And I also have a concern about a lot of elders who they have done so much to make sacrifices for the greater good of the community, and then they may not have their own children, but they parented others, or they may be estranged from their children, and then they're living alone. I don't agree with elders living alone, and I don't necessarily think nursing homes are the best place, because I remember my grandmother, she was in her 90s when she passed, and she would always say, like, the children keep her young, like we need them and they need us. It's like an energy exchange that's vital for their life force to continue to be charged up. And so what I'm hearing you say, grow your own, which has a lot to do with the fact that our mindset not being dependent on the supermarkets, just like the hospitals.
It's the same.
And I learned from a sister how our DNA actually gets in the food when we grow our own food.
Yeah.
So there's also a woman I know, shout out to Grow Something, Sister Ginger Fortune. She has this whole movement, and she's growing like 75% of her food for her family to ingest. So that's a personal goal for me. But then when we talk about raising our own, not allowing someone else to be the authority over us. Like, I believe in theocracy. Like, I work for the Creator. Anything that I do, if it's not in alignment with that, then I don't deal with it. And I've always been fearless in that, from a youth. Like, I don't listen to nobody but the Creator. And that is something that I feel like is a call to action too. Like, who are we here for? Are we really here to deal with one another in a godly way? Like, respecting the God within us does not mean that we look at other people outside of ourselves playing God.
Yeah.
And when you have an action plan, what does that take? Because we're dealing with people not maybe being economically empowered as we should be. A lot of us are still disenfranchised because we're still suffering from the blows of the, transatlantic slave trade and colonialism. How do we create a plan? When I was giving birth at home, the midwives were like, you need to have a birthing plan.
Yep.
So I had a birthing plan, but I never got my water birth because they were like, no, you're having twins. But now in my life, I see how the PCP was an advocate. We had an excellent PCP, and some things happened and they were not able to be in the community and service. And I had a little, it's really a big thing, but, I try not to focus on things I don't want. But I had a gap with my children where they were misdiagnosed. And one of my sons has, well, they probably don't even want me to say it on the air, but they're dealing with a challenge that was misdiagnosed in a hospital. And I felt like that gap that we weren't with the PCP, we could have caught it sooner. And early intervention, whether it's health or education, is always best. And I remember them making me feel like a villain or a bad mother because I was not open to surgery.
Yep.
And I also found out that the surgery that they give I don't know if it's the American Medical Association or one of those big wig associations actually say that the surgery is not good, but they still do the surgery because they make more money. And they went from saying, oh, your children, all they need is physical therapy, but I have to drive an hour, 90 minutes, and to go to a neighborhood where we're not represented. And I wasn't able to do that. And we went from only needing physical therapy to now they want to do surgery on both of my children because having twins, that's double the money. And then after 2 and 3 doctor visits and me doing research and them trying to make me feel like we're the professional, we're the experts, what do you really think you know? Then they changed and it said, oh, only one of them needed surgery. So I could have went, left and did all that. So my thing is like, where do we start? Like, when you talk about a treatment plan, what would be the most important components in us having a plan for sustaining our health?
Okay. So a contemporary plan would be if you have an insurance provider, let's say Peach State Health Plan, CareSource, or some insurance provider. When you're negotiating for service of care, call your insurance provider and ask to speak to their medical team. Everything the hospital has, we have, or they have. So, and they're trying to save money. That's the only difference.
Okay.
And that's the first piece. It on the plan, on the contemporary side. Now on the self holistic side, the plan would be to have a piece of land, maybe a food forest. You don't need animals. You just need a place where you pretty much can ground. And ground is, people call it grounding, but basically, I spoke about diabetes before. In medicine, we know that all your impurities kind of play to the ground. They go to the bottom of the body to be ground out by touching the ground. So ground is not just a holistic thing. It's also how your body moves impurities. And so if you got a food forest, just a quarter of an acre, you don't need 100 acres, you don't need 1,000, just somewhere where you can go ground, maybe grow a fruit tree, and the family uses it. What we're doing, in short, what we're doing is making our own intentional store.
Okay.
And so once you kind of get a little piece of land, if you ain't got no land, do a backyard. And somebody in the family got land, somebody in the family got some land somewhere, and we make enough money to buy land. We buy houses, we can buy land. If someone's doing it, get behind them, let them do the work too.
Okay.
Find out how you can keep nature in you. So honey, wild honey, grounding, heirlooms are plants that have high vibrating, don't throw away the weeds. Understand.
Source talks about that.
Yeah, do not throw away the weeds. And so, food bank. And on the contemporary side, understand your endocrine system. Know what an endocrinologist is. Know what endocrine disturbers are. Because from the seed oil that we predominantly use, most people don't want to use pork fat anymore. But pork fat evaporates and the body metabolizes it. Seed oil, seeds don't pop without a certain temperature, a certain climate, a certain pressure. So they disturb the endocrine system much different than things that evaporate. So understand the endocrine system, especially if you're a woman, because that's the drip system. Anything happens there, you see a lot of children diagnosed on the spectrum, autism, ADHD, bipolar, and so forth. Generally, whenever my clients will call and say, you have some clients that have vaccines and say, after I took this, that happens too. Not to minimize that happens, but generally, I would always say, make an appointment with an endocrinologist and at least get the baseline when they're doing good. Don't wait till Jonathan is ADHD, throwing up, going crazy, but get that baseline. So now you know what I look like when I'm crazy. Now, when I'm calm, or even if I'm on medicine or not, when I'm calm, go back to the endocrinologist and look at my levels. So now you, as the caretaker, you know what norm looks like for you in his treatment plan. You understand? So now you have comparable. Now You're lit, and then when you call the insurance and you say, hey, I went this time, I went 6 months later, and now they've given him this medication, it doesn't work. The insurance is going to say, did you try it? You say, yes, I tried it. I tried it for 30 days. Here's what the endocrinologist said. And they're going to say, okay, we're not going to give you the generic. We're going to give you lithium because you've shown that that doesn't work, and you need non-generic. So that's the contemporary side.
That's interesting what you're saying, because I know seed oils you're saying are, toxic. Olive oil, grapeseed oil.
But they're not toxic.
When you're cooking it,
yeah, they're not.
Fire, the chemical reaction.
They're not toxic. There's nothing that your body can't fix, that your body can't balance out. But
like that
just
statement.
if you just close your eyes and think about how seeds work, if you think about sunflower seeds, any seed oil. Seeds if you look at the avocado seed, and you look at just seed-based oil, seeds take a while to break down, and they they slow up the endocrine system, and some of them don't go anywhere, which literally blocks. That's what they call endocrine disturbers, endocrine blockers. They block your systems. But if you do use them, don't fry the life out of them either. So you'll see they have a colder break point. So seed oil is like if you cooking salmon, you just searing it. You're not cooking like if we cooking like grandma cooked fried chicken. We gonna cook. We might cook lard because we need to brown it quick, and we need to get hot quick. But that lard gonna steam off in your body. Your body's gonna metabolize it and move it on. Your body can use it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I heard about black pigs. I gotta have you on the show again.
Yes,
and I've studied different walks of life, so I know Muslims are like, no, we're not doing that. I'm
Muslims
like,
ain't doing that.
Coconut oil for the Muslim brothers and sisters out here. Like, we use coconut oil. I cannot fathom using anything from the pig, but I heard about your pigs tasting like vegetables. I'm like, we need a whole nother show.
Yeah, coconut oil is different. Coconut oil is not. Coconut oil grows, so it's water. That is water, and it slowly coagulates and it evaporates. It's a big, easy popping seed. But when you got small seeds that take certain heat, if you growing corn wait to pop when they get a bunch of water, right temperature, and so forth. And the pig thing, I mean, my Muslim family may not dig it, but you talk to my Haitians and my Zos, and they would literally understand how the country was hit by they took all their black pigs. And why did they take the black pigs? The black pigs eat weeds, and they have a different alchemy. They don't have a worm base.
They got the melanin.
Well, they can steam off. They can steam off. All pigs come from black pigs, and the pig that don't can't steam off. They never get to their black. Like all corn is black. And if it don't get to this black corn, it might be red corn.
Right.
It might be orange corn.
I actually like the tricolor corn. We don't eat a lot of it. So this is very interesting because I know we're getting to the end of the show, but you're making me think about years ago, Dr. Joel Pookrum. I used to go to classes, and they would talk about white mice in the laboratory and how, like, prescription drugs and stuff are specifically geared towards non-melanated people.
That's a big conversation. You just
I shouldn't have started
it just like this. It ain't no white mice outside.
Right.
And when they show up, it's very rare they show up and they make it because we know they need help. So the universe knows if it show up and it's white, there's a lot of stuff going on around you because we all come from the same black source.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get white, but if you do it, and the mice, what they do with the mice, they just inbreed the mice to have a quantity of mice. If you take those same black pigs we spoke about and you keep inbreeding them, you'll see speckled pigs come from my 2 solid black pigs. If you let the brothers jump on top of each other, they'll get lighter in their colors and what they're doing. You'll see more of the recessive. You'll see more of there's no diversity. There's no elder to say, you need to be with them because he do the medicine and he do this and that. And that's what keep everything black because there's always different diversity, different density. And the mice are just one thing. They just...
We definitely have to have
Chickens
you come
too.
on
Side
again.
note: if you look at a farm, it's a lot of white chickens, white pigs, white sheep.
When they
white
were
goat.
originally brown and
They are.
black.
They here. They ain't. They don't. They here. You everywhere they black, they gonna cost you more. When you talk about Wagyu beef, or you talk about anything, you go out, you'll start seeing it from this conversation. When you go somewhere,
Yes.
you will see it. You'll drive by and you'll say, they all this way or that way. They just hard to raise. They got conscience in them. They run quite a bit. They wait.
Or
They have
free
to choose
spirit.
you. Mm-hmm.
And they have to choose you. I like
They have to
that.
choose you.
I see that with animals, even in the neighborhood. So, what to take away, because we also have a listening audience that's not in this country. So, like, growing our food is very important. Trying to get food in its most original form, like heirloom, making sure you get good seeds.
Well, I would say, stand by the bitter. Know your bitter. Get your palate ready to taste. When you say, "Ooh, I don't like this," you probably need that.
Right.
Because if you've been accustomed to comfort, everything tastes good, but you can't live like that. You need black.
Yes.
Black is density. You need the bitter.
Yes.
And then if you get too much bitter, guess what you can do? You can go back and tamper it off with something that's not as bitter, something sweet. You have to augment that.
Yes. So we do bitters like parasite cleansing, blood cleansing, Cerecy, Bissy. These type of things, my children have been taking them since they're younger, so it is an acquired palate. And like a lot of times when we do teas, we don't really use sweetener, but I know the wild honey is important. You said make sure that nature is in you.
Yeah.
And that's like the wild honey, the local honeys.
Honey, agave. These are cold pressed. They just take agave look like a big aloe plant. They just squeeze the.
What about
agave.
maple syrup?
I mean, you could tap.
But that wouldn't
Canada got
be-
good maple syrup. They tap the tree.
Okay.
But
Honey and agave over maple syrup?
honey and agave over maple syrup. But if you're gonna do maple syrup, I would say don't be cheap and
You gotta get grade B.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
had a
don't-
conversation about
Don't be cheap.
that with someone who I work with for the Master Cleanse. Grade B has the nutrients in it,
Yeah.
not the maple syrup that
Yeah.
you put on
Yep.
pancakes and
Yep.
waffles. So I'm glad you said that.
Don't be cheap. And when you do buy agave or something that's not cheap, don't use it like it's cheap. That's why it's expensive. When you buy it, it's very concentrated. So
Use it more sparingly
Yes.
to stretch it out.
well, your body reads it like that. So
Okay.
when you use something like if I use a syrup I grew up on as a child that wasn't syrup or maple syrup, I don't know what it was. I think it's just fructose corn syrup. But anyway, you're gonna use more of it because it has a
Watered
piece of
down.
it has a piece of where it comes from. It has a piece of where it comes. So your body's gonna by default gonna call for more. But if you get
Okay, I
the source,
see.
you'll call for less because it's in its original form. You're not if you eating balanced. You're not. If I take you to a restaurant where your plate is $75,000, it's gonna be avant-garde. It's gonna be very small, but it's gonna be very dense meat, very dense.
High quality.
They're just talking about the density of what you're eating. So eat little pieces of it because your body knows it.
Yeah, I know that people who live a long time, the centenarians, they don't eat a lot. They eat small meals and they only eat up to 80%.
Yep.
And fruits and vegetables being really important. And then we talk about a treatment plan, knowing that the insurance company wants to save money versus the hospital.
Yes, and
So insurance companies will be a better ally than the hospital.
Always.
Not going to the hospital for every little thing.
No, you need to call.
If you have access to a hospital, you should call on the elders and the healers in the community and combine holistic with Western.
Bounce them. They've been going to the hospitals too. Like elders. So you need them for. You have no other resource. You have
Leaning
no
on
other.
our elders more and making sure that the knowledge is being passed on generationally. And then you talked about endocrine levels. I remember Dr. Bobby Price was talking about know your hormone levels. And when I went to get my annual, because I believe in getting annual checkups.
For sure.
And it was like, why are you saying that? Why do you want to know? And I didn't even want to mention his name in there because, some doctors, once they know that they're pushing certain things and they kind of, get persecuted. But I remember what you were saying about the endocrinologist.
And the
because-
A1C.
Yes, and I know always, thank you for reminding, always know your A1C levels, because if we're pre-diabetic,
You already got it. You wanna play worst case scenario. Yeah,
yes,
you wanna play if someone says you're pre anything, play worst case scenario because they have an interest in your body at that point. I can live if you tell me your A1C, I could tell you where your legs are gonna be and where you're gonna be within years. Within just from algorithm. I can just tell you what we're gonna do to you because I know when you're gonna get diabetes. I know your habits ain't gonna change, and I'm gonna keep lulling you, and then when you get it, we're gonna talk about
money.
Yeah,
Okay, so what can we do as a follow-up if people are interested in, this type of work? Do they wait for you to come on the show again, or?
yeah. Definitely wait for me to come on the show again. I have my contact. You're gonna have my contact. Right now, we're into I'm trying to anchor housing to
That's
this
right.
piece, and so we have a spot here in Georgia that I'm gonna, in short, anchor housing that already has the farm piece where you rent like you rent, but it has a large garden. It has a place for you to grow your chickens if you want to. You can harvest your animals, or you can not spring water, whatever you want, but it's within. It's clearly driven toward reducing your readmission rate. So you can go to the hospital. We just don't want you continuously going to the hospital within 30 days.
Got
And it's
it.
just a rental, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, great areas, great schools, but you got the farm piece right there. And we put managers on the property, so you don't have to have the farm piece. You can just have the house in a nice location. And
That is a great visionary
and we're scaling that.
archetype, because what you're saying is housing is an issue
Yep.
here in Georgia and a lot of places. It's hard to find affordable housing in decent areas where, it's a safe environment. And school is like, if you get good rent, you're like, oh my gosh, the crime is probably bad. The schools are awful. And so creating that as a prototype, I mentioned this to another sister, and she was talking about this elder who had been talking about it for years. So it's like when the creator gives you something, it's who is going to do it. And
Yeah.
so I
No, we're
give
doing
thanks
it.
that you're doing
Yeah,
it.
no, we're doing it.
Because sometimes people have the idea, but they may not have the means or the steps to get it done. So creating housing where you have access to farming and livestock on the land.
Are witnessing it. Just we, like I said, we have a manager that'll manage it being done. But I got a couple hundred acres, and we're
Said
scaling.
that so lightly. He has a couple hundred acres.
That ain't enough when you start. When you start planning, right? You start brain go crazy. But if we can get this right, the goal is to have a place where you can shortcut. You can say, I need a place where I can at least be around it.
Right, because that changes your energy too. The
you gonna have
exposure.
to, that's the bitter. You gonna have to, you gonna have to feel it, and but that's what we're doing. We're anchoring that housing to that care again, that care plan. So you should be able to have housing, because all of that goes into the readmission rate. I can tell you where your income kind of is. I can tell you housing dynamic, because all that plays a role in you coming to the hospital. It plays a role in you delivering where you deliver. It plays a role into where your children go to school and where they end up. And so I get right to it. Once I see it, I'm like, okay, we need to give housing to everybody that is on this, because we need to do it and show that this one
model works.
Yeah, and we can, once we get the scalable model, we can take it anywhere. I
love this, and I mean, it's so key. So thank you for having this vision. And I mean, for me, I'm even personally, I'm doing this to help support my community in the world, but this is relevant to me personally. And so I'm just really grateful. Last week, our guest said, you can grow on land, but you can grow on land, but you can't grow the land. We need to make sure we get land.
Yeah.
Land is key. And for those who don't have it, you can grow in your house, you can grow on your balcony, as you said, a garden, but that is really key. And also the bitters. I can't express that as much.
Yeah.
Like, You know, when you're dealing with growth and change, oftentimes it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
And the things that will help you with healing are not the sweet things, they're the bitter things. And so we hope that everyone who's listening over the airwaves, where you were able to get something that is useful that you can apply into your daily life, because the goal is for us to have a better quality of life. It's one thing, you know, to live 80, 90, 100 years old, but how well you're living that quality of life, and it starts young. So you've given me some seeds personally. You know, I'm looking forward to you coming on our show again. This is Brother Jonathan Carr, who is a steward of the land and a steward of health and wellness. And we also want to shout out to your family, to your queen. I often say this a lot of times, the brothers who I come across, I feel like, you know, wise men, they really try to link up with the partnering and to build that up as a family. One of the most revolutionary things that we can do as a people, a part of it is growing our food, but it's building these healthy relationships, having healthy partnerships, having healthy families, so that we can have a next generation who's better prepared than what we were when we were youth. So I give thanks that I see in a holistic manner of this healthy eating and living, and knowing that we have to also know the system. That, you know, there's some people who they shun it, but we have to use the tools, and our ancestors helped to build it all. So we have a right to everything on this planet, every system, every structure, but it's how to use it so that we're not a victim of the system, but we know how to be victorious within and without it. So I give thanks. You have any closing words that you'd like to share?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, dragging me off the farm and chasing the pigs, and thank you for having me. And blessings.
And we give thanks to Brother Source, who was also in the studio. I just give thanks for the community, and shout out again always to DJ Rez and to the Caribbean Life TV family. Big up yourself. And with that, we are closing. I did not do the affirmations and replacement of the song, but I just want to remind you all of some of the things that Brother Jonathan said, that you are a perfect masterpiece, and that there is nothing that is going on within your body that cannot be corrected or healed, and that because we are a part of the divine, it is our divine birthright to be healthy, happy, and whole. And we come into this world already perfect and complete. And as we move through it and the things that we may see that are going on, there is nothing that we cannot conquer. The goal is to work in community. So I want everyone that's listening over the airwaves to know that you are a valuable link in the chain, and we choose that this chain not be broken, that we become a united circle, no matter where you are in the world, whatever energy, thoughts, words, deeds that you put out, it has a ripple effect. So continue to push forward kindness and goodness, and love yourself enough that you can love someone else. And with that, we're grateful. Thank you for listening to the Alkebulan Radio Show. Have a powerful rest of the day.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up.